Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have got a wild ride for you tonight. We're talking to at Rambo Biggs of Twitter fame, aka Joe Biggs, combat veteran and staunch advocate of the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. We'll be discussing his tiff, so to speak, with Duke Nukem Eric Swalwell, the crazy radicalized left-wing Democrat congressman from, you guessed it, California. He's not only trying to get President Trump out of office, but he wants to confiscate your semi automatic assault weapons, military style. You know, the gun that doesn't exist. And that's being kind about it. So strap in. This is the Rob Manus Show. Folks, it's going to be a wild one today. In May 2018, U.S. Representative Eric Swalwell, representing California's 15th congressional district, wrote an opinion column for USA Today calling for a ban on military style semi automatic assault weapons and proposing the federal government buy such guns from their owners while criminal prosecuting those who refuse to hand over their weapons. And I quote, "We should ban possession of military style semi automatic assault weapons. We should buy back such weapons from all who choose to abide by the law. And we should criminally prosecute any who choose to defy it by keeping their weapons. The ban would not apply to law enforcement agencies or shooting clubs. This policy proposal, something of a backlash, is what it caused from supporters of gun rights and led to a particularly significant exchange on Twitter more than 6 months later. On the 16th of November, the conservative television host Jon Cardio posted a link to an NBC story about Swalwell's column, adding, "Democrats want to eradicate the Second Amendment, ban and seize all guns, and have all power rest with the state. These people are dangerously obsessed with power." In response to this tweet, conservative gun rights enthusiast Joe Biggs and combat vet wrote, "So basically, Eric Swalwell wants a war because that's what you would get. You're out of your effing mind if you think I'll give up my rights and give the government all the power." Swalwell's response, "And it would be a short war, my friend. The government has nukes, too many of them, but they're legit." Of course, Swalwell's reference to a short war and the U.S. government's possession of nuclear weapons prompted claims that he had called for such weapons to be used on gun owners who refused to sell or hand over their semi automatic rifles under the proposal he had laid out in his USA Today column. The Daily Wire declared in a headline, "Democrat calls for gun confiscation, suggests nuking Americans who fight back," adding Democratic Rep. Eric Swalwell, D. California caused a firestorm when he suggested using nuclear weapons against American citizens who oppose his far left gun control agenda, which includes forcing Americans to give up their semi automatic weapons. Swalwell made the comment in response to a May News article on his radical plan that was widely recirculated on Twitter, in which he called for a $15 billion government program to confiscate millions of guns from Americans. To be fair, Swalwell did try to clarify that he was joking around, just trying to show Biggs that he doesn't live in the 18th century and that going to war with your government is a ludicrous idea. Sadly, Swalwell, who has sworn to support and defend the U.S. Constitution, hasn't got a damn clue what the Second Amendment means or its intended purposes. For example, we have this from Eric Erickson. "The founders intended that Congress was to make no law curtailing the rights of citizens to keep and bear arms. The Second Amendment, contrary to much of today's conversation, has just about as much to do with the people protecting themselves from tyranny as it does burglars. That's why there's little common ground about assault rifles, even charitably ignoring the fact that there really is no such thing. If the Second Amendment is to protect the citizenry from their own government, then the citizenry should be able to be armed. There are plenty of arguments and bodies to suggest that we might, as a nation, need to rethink this. The founders gave us that option. We can amend the Constitution. In doing so, we should keep in mind that in the past 100 years, Germany, Italy, Russia, Japan, China, and other governments have turned on their people at various times, and in doing so, restricted freedoms, starting most often with gun ownership. You may think a 30-round magazine is too big. Under the real purpose of the Second Amendment, folks, a 30-round magazine might be just a little bit too small. Erickson highlights where Joe Biggs was coming from when he responded to Newcombe, Eric Swalwell's threat to nuke American citizens for opposing his radical gun confiscation and banning ideas. The idea that citizens would protect themselves from an overreaching government is at the core of our founders' intentions, which they took from the English Bill of Rights in 1689. All jokes aside, folks, there are many leftist politicians in office today, just like Swalwell, who want to eliminate the right to be armed as a citizen, giving the government all the power. I, as does Biggs, and most Americans oppose such an idea, and these citizens likely won't submit to a confiscation effort. What will the leftists do in that event? I think it's a very serious subject, especially in light of the New Zealand government's attempts to confiscate all semi-automatic firearms on a voluntary basis, which doesn't appear to be going well. Well, today's guest is none other than the great @Rambo Biggs from Twitter, aka Joe Biggs, combat veteran and a man who is not afraid to speak his mind, not to mention the inventor of the handle, Duke Nukem Swalwell. How the hell did you get the opportunity to name a guy like Eric Swalwell, the radical left-wing Democrat from California, Newcombe? I know the story, but some of my viewers may not. Just kind of give us the Reader's Digest version of how all that happened, and especially since he wrote the op-ed that was centered around this whole fiasco, like 6 months before the Twitter universe figured it out, and you were the one that called him on it. How did that happen?
So Jon Cardio, he's a reporter for Newsmax. He actually tweeted out Eric Swalwell's little piece, and I saw the article, and it really pissed me off. And I put my phone down. I said, you know what? I'm not even going to engage on this. I'm not going to do anything. So I walked back to my room, and then I was like, no, I have to say something. Like, this is just the most ridiculous thing in the world. And I go back and it's talking about Eric Swalwell, representative out of California, how he wanted to introduce legislation that would confiscate guns from law-abiding citizens. And he was making this argument that Americans would just roll over and give them to him because in order to be a law-abiding citizen, if they make that a law to give up the guns, that we would just roll over. And that kind of goes against what this country was founded on. So I made a statement. I said, no, what you would do would you'd start a civil war. And he snapped back. He goes, it'd be a very short war. He goes, because we have nukes, and insinuating the fact that if we were to stand up against a tyrannical government and to stop something like that from happening, that he would go and take it a step further to use nukes. And from there on out, I called him Newcombe. And the argument went on and on. And then it gained a lot of traction. A lot of people got in on it. And a lot of people upset. I mean, he really got his feet held to the fire by the media all around the world going, hey, man, you've got this really radical guy coming in, making some pretty radical statements about gun confiscation in America, and it got both sides really heated. And it's a topic we have to talk about because as the left moves further and further left, this conversation is starting to happen a lot more. And it's something we definitely, as American citizens, something we should be talking about seriously because they're taking it serious. Even though they like to say that, just give us the AR-15s. Well, you give them an inch, they take a mile. It starts off with the AR-15. Then next thing you know, it's your Mossberg 500. Then it's your pistol. And they're never going to be happy until they get everything taken away from us. And that's what they want.
You're absolutely right. And what's really pitiful about it is, and thank you, by the way, my @RobManus Twitter account gained 1,000 followers because I was able to help you expand the media view, so to speak, of this thing. I was one of the first people, I think, that saw your tweet response back. And what shocked me is that the guy was serious.
Yeah.
He was dead serious. And look, man, I used to work on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I was a nuclear operations officer, one of like 5 or 6 in the whole Pentagon, and wrote parts of the Nuclear Decision Handbook, the thing called the football or the black book that's carried with the president. So with an elected official that is in a elected body like the U.S. Congress, making statements like that, say even implying that they would attack the citizens of the United States of America using our armed forces and our nuclear weapons capability. That's the ludicrous part. And I know he came back at you once and said your thoughts about going to war against your government are ludicrous. They're actually not, and that's what's pitiful, is that the guy doesn't really even know, even though he's sworn to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, he doesn't even know what the Second Amendment is all about. And the Second Amendment is not just being able to protect yourself from some guy or gal breaking in your house or trying to carjack you. It's also about being able to protect this country from both external and internal enemies. And one of those internal enemies potentially could be your own government. And I really don't think that the United States Armed Forces would back him up if he ever
Well,
tried to do anything.
he also doesn't know history. I mean, he makes this argument that a small group of armed people would not be able to stand up against a big government. I mean, hello, I think we've seen that happen before a few times. I mean, look, I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we got our butts handed to us by farmers in certain times or by the Taliban. They would come out and ambush us. And yeah, we have more armor, we had more rockets, we had more bombs, we had capabilities with AC-30 gunships, 130 gunships, we have artillery, all these things they didn't have, yet they're still able to hold us and keep us from moving forward at times. So that whole argument that we couldn't do anything, that's just him trying to quell the masses, because that's a scary thing to hear. And not only is he just a congressman, he is potential, or is he, I can't even remember, has he even announced if he's running for president yet? Because I know that was one of the things that he was discussing for a while too. And that's what makes his comments even more scarier, because this is a guy that wants to run this country. We don't need that in America. We're trying to move away from that,
Yeah, I think I saw just a few days ago that he said he was going to announce in a few weeks or 2 weeks or so. So you're absolutely right, Joe. I mean, think about this. Eric Newcombe Swalwell with the cookie in his pocket with the codes to send to the U.S. Armed Forces to launch nuclear weapons on their own people. I have something to tell him. Newcombe, it's not going to happen. Those nukes will stay right where they're supposed to stay, because nobody's going to use them against the American people. They're there to protect the American people. And you need to understand that. And you may want to go back to civics school in 8th grade. I'm homeschooling my 8th grade son, and we're doing civics this year, just like every other 8th grader, and learn that the commander in chief is not all powerful before you decide you want to run for president of the United States. That's really the crux of the matter, is that this guy could be, I mean, seriously, people are seriously looking at this guy to run for president of the United States. And he thinks that he's capable of doing it. And it just puzzles me that folks in the media and in his party go along with it. It just indicates that they really have gone way, way radically left.
There's no accountability on the left whatsoever. There's a huge lack of leadership on the left. And you have these people that make these kind of comments, that make these mistakes on the left day to day, and yet no one's ever held accountable for their actions. It's always, what's the next scapegoat? What can we blame President Trump for? Oh, no, let's take this and let's create another thing, another controversy. Putting the wall up is racist, and it's going to also give us a shortage of avocados. I mean, I need guacamole that bad over national security. These are the things the left do. They can't ever go, hey, we made a mistake, we're sorry, we'll fix the problem internally, and we'll try to do better the next day. That's what you're supposed to do in an elected position like that. You're a person that's in a leadership role. Live that life, be an actual leader, hold yourself accountable, have some integrity, and that's something they're lacking in big time.
Yeah, I think our politicians and political class in this country has a problem with admitting when they make a mistake. That's what's driving them nuts about Donald Trump. I mean, look, he may never say that I made a mistake, but he makes mistakes all the time, and then he moves on, and he's trying to do what's right for the country. You mentioned accountability, man. We have seen a lack of accountability across the board in the Democrat political atmosphere here lately. This guy Northam, that's governor of Virginia, that's a picture. He's either in one picture, he's either in blackface or he's wearing a Klan hoodie and a Klan outfit, and there's no accountability. His attorney general is in the same kind of predicament. The lieutenant governor has been accused of sexual assault. They're all still in office. Not a one of them have resigned, and we've seen Republican after Republican after Republican when they and they're fallible too, and they make huge mistakes and get power hungry and those kind of things and make these kind of mistakes. They resign. The party, the Republican Party, holds them accountable, and they resign. And we see all this whole lack of accountability. The latest thing trend is that Ilhan Omar, and Rashida Tlaib and AOC, I call them the Jihad Caucus because they're anti-Semitic. Omar's on the Foreign Affairs Committee, for goodness sake. She's getting intelligence information. She's getting intelligence information, and she's anti-Semitic and pro-jihadi. She tried to get 9 jihadis that wanted to go work for ISIS off lightly with an American judge. And Tlaib is pro-Hamas, outwardly so. And the Democratic Party leadership's not holding them accountable like we held Steve King accountable on the Republican side. They removed him from all of his committees immediately and did and called him by name in the resolution that called him out. And they didn't even do that. And then what's the latest one? Biden, right?
Yep.
Joe Biden, Uncle Joe, creepy Uncle Joe, is now getting, we're starting to see these stories. Is there any, I've followed him for years and I've never really put much serious thought into whether he was really doing strange things, but now these people are coming out of the woodwork, aren't they?
Well, I mean, honestly, I'll tell you, anytime, like my parents all like to call me, my family all like to call me and ask me, about politics, because that's kind of what I do. So, and every time Joe Biden is ever brought up, I mean, even when people I randomly ran into, they're like, isn't that the guy that's always like creepily grabbing women and whispering into their ear and massaging them? He's like, isn't that weird? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. I said, there's actual compilation videos all over YouTube of the hundreds of times he's done this. And I mean, you look at the look in the women's eyes, they don't look like they're enjoying anything about this whatsoever. They feel like they've been violated. I feel violated just watching it, and here he is. We've got this one guy. He's about to make another unwanted advance and probably announce his bid to run for president. And then he's going to violate the entire country. I mean, you didn't hear about these stories because he was protected by Obama. And now he's out on his own. He's going to have to figure out a way to shake this. But I mean, there's some creepy footage out there of this guy. And I mean, look at it. He's not going to take responsibility for it. This is the same guy that said, believe all women. And he's still going to find a way to skate around it. And the left's going to give him a hall pass. Hillary Clinton, she couldn't admit the fact that, hey, she was just a horrible candidate. She had to find something else to blame it on other than herself. Look at Stacey Abrams. Couldn't accept the fact that she was not a good candidate whatsoever to be governor of Georgia and lost. Instead of moving on, cried about it and wanted to blame racism and do a recount and all that. So people need to learn, look, the people spoke. They don't like you. You're creeping them out, Joe. They didn't like you, Stacey. They didn't like you, Hillary. Move on. Let it go. Get some accountability. Man up. Do the right thing. And let's do what's right for the country and not do what's right for our pockets. And that's what these guys are doing every day.
Oh, I think you're right, man. It's doing what's right for their pockets, I think, is their number one focus and priority goal once they get into office. And I have to be transparent here. I've run for office 3 times and not won, and a 4th time I won overwhelmingly. I was the right candidate at the right time and the time that I won. And quite frankly, I didn't run a great campaign enough to get elected the other 3 times. So, you got to move on from that and still try to have an impact on your community and your society and your country. And all they're doing is tearing it down. They're tearing it down. And now Uncle Joe is supposed to be their savior here, Joe Biden, in this presidential race, because they've got these like 19 lefty Looney Tunes crowd that that want to
Fake
do the
Indian.
new Green Deal and turn us into I'll just say it, a communist country that eliminates not only cow farts, but the ability to eat a good steak and a hamburger. That's just damn un-American, man. But they're all on board with it, and there's no accountability, and the media loves them. They love them, and they don't want to hold them accountable because they believe in the same things. I think, from what I can tell, all you got to do
Better
is
O'Rourke,
watch the
the fake
coverage of
Mexican.
Trump. Say
You got
again?
Beto O'Rourke, the fake Mexican, who was involved in a hit and run, lied about it, drinking and driving, goes
Mhm.
and this is the kind of guy that gives his wife, says it's an avocado and it's poop. I mean, and ate dirt after losing to Ted Cruz. Like, this isn't a person who seems to be stable or emotionally there in the right way. I mean, every time he's on TV, he's sweating, like he looks like he's on some type of drug. And he even wrote letters about fantasizing about killing kids. I mean, this is what the left has: a fake Mexican, a fake Indian, a whole bunch of people that cry and whine or say that they're for women or believe all women. And then as soon as they get accused, they're like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. No, there's nothing on this. This is landslide for Trump in 2020, in my opinion.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I think that all of the pundits and all of the pollsters will once again be surprised because I know folks that won't answer polls these days because they're afraid to. Or if they do take the poll, they're still afraid to say that they're going to vote for President Trump because of all the issues out there. And that's one of the things that's really pissing me off these days is you've got these crazy lefties out there in the media and the politicians, and every time somebody puts on a red "Make America Great Again" hat, they have trained the masses on their side to say that's the same thing as a Klan hood. They've trained them, and I've got one sitting on my desk. I keep it here just to show everybody, and I made a video with it a couple of weeks ago, and I got thousands and thousands of Twitter comments on my short video about that, defending people's right to wear that hat, to say what they feel, and say what they believe, regardless of whether people disagree with them or not. That's what we have in America, is that ability to do that and gather without the fear of oppression, of being attacked, and those kinds of things. And you've got this crazy movement on the left that attacks you for that. I mean, not just verbally. People are showing up to people's houses. People are getting attacked in the streets. I saw a clip the other day of a person getting knocked down that had a MAGA hat on and basically out cold in the streets. It's unbelievable and really just pisses me off because eventually law enforcement and some other larger force, the citizens, is going to have to take care of that business if they don't get control of themselves. And it's because of the Democrat leadership not being willing to hold themselves and their people accountable, I think.
And the media as well. The media is, throwing gas on this nonstop and making it seem like when you walk outside, you're literally storming the beaches of Normandy and you're going to be up against millions of Nazis. I mean, let's be honest. Like, really, how many actual Nazi people do we have in this country? Then they're not even real Nazis. These are just little punk kids going through a phase. Most of them, anyways. They're idiots and they're out there giving a bad name for people. But maybe a small bit. And then you look at the KKK. There's 10 dudes in Arkansas right now, and they all live together and have about 20 teeth amongst all of them. I mean, it's not a threat. This talk about how America is this racist country by the left all the time is complete and total BS, man. When you walk outside, you turn off social media, you go out and interact in public, no one's talking about that stuff. Everyone's getting along. When you see these videos, they happen in places like Portland. It's brainwashed. It's a leftist area. You look at New York, Manhattan, brainwashed leftist area. And these people are so addicted to Rachel Maddow and all these people, and they listen to it, and they eat it, they live it, they breathe it, and they let it control their emotions. Everything they do is based on emotional response instead of actual fact, and sitting there and clearly thinking about stuff, using analytics and risk mitigation and things like that. These guys are just raw emotion and violence. But when you go out to hey, where I live in Florida, I wear Trump shirts all the time. You see Trump stickers on all the cars. You don't see people fight, and you see people of different races and nationalities and religions hanging out every day. But they want to make it seem like every day on the news that the world's fallen apart, that the country's gone to hell because Donald Trump is this Hitler figure and he's dog whistling all of his racist white people on the right to go out there and commit these hate crimes against people of color on the left, when 90% of these things that come out are always hoaxes anyways. It's all BS.
Yeah.
It's just one big propaganda spin. And how does a guy like Jussie Smollett, who's admitted to hiring these two guys, and the two guys are seen on camera in security footage buying all the stuff that Jussie said that was used against him with the hat, the bleach, the rope, all that, and yet the charges are dropped? What?
Don't get me going on Smollett, but before I move on move on to this subject, you know, the only real Nazi that I've seen in the United States of America was removed by President Donald J. Trump and sent back to Israel or Germany or wherever the hell he came from, not just a year and a half ago, after going through 8 years of Democrat rule. And part of those years, they had the Congress and the presidency and the majority on the Supreme Court, or a balance on the Supreme Court. And they still didn't get rid of the Nazi scumbag and the war criminal. And you know what? We did. Because 66 million people that voted for Donald J. Trump love this country and love each other. And they love the people they disagree with politically. And they don't want to go out and beat them up and throw sticks at them and hit them with rocks and make them bleed and those kind of things and scare people and intimidate them. They don't want to do those kind of things. And the blame gets thrown on these very, very small core groups of people that really, like we have David Duke down here. I hate to even say his name because it just gives them media, but people need to know the guy was a grand wizard of the KKK. Nobody's following his beliefs down here in Louisiana or anywhere else in the country. I can guarantee you that, no matter what the media says. So let's think about this, though. You mentioned Smollett. Do you think the justice system in this country is broken, Joe? Or is this just a blip?
It's definitely broken. And like I said, this all stems back to lack of accountability and leadership within this country. We have no leadership. We have so many leaders that are put in these positions, but they do not truly understand what their job is. They're too motivated by money. A lot of these cops, a lot of these people getting put in the positions high up, and it turns into politics. Obviously, you know that being in the military, once you get to a certain rank, it's no longer, you know, on the battlefield. You're now playing politics. You know, you're doing stuff like that. But a lot of these law enforcement individuals need to focus on training these people to do the right thing and holding law enforcement officials in charge of these types of things accountable for their actions and things like that. When you don't have that accountability, when you don't have that leadership, you get corruption that breeds, and it gets bigger and bigger and becomes cancerous, turns into a tomb, and it's completely taken down this body. There's great law enforcement officials everywhere. There's great FBI agents, there's great CIA agents, but you have these people at these top positions throughout the Justice Department, State Department, all over the place that are too busy playing these partisan politics the whole time and trying to rub elbows for, you know, to get a little money here and there and to help themselves out and to benefit themselves. And then you have things like this happen for that. And that's the sad thing is, you know, you've got great people that wake up every day, put that badge on, go out there, do that investigative work, and they're getting pooped on, you know, they're getting crapped on by these individuals at the top trying to do other things to better themselves. And that's why we don't have a really good justice system. That's why we don't have really anything right now at all. I mean, here you have this guy dead to rights. You've got the footage. You've got all this stuff to show that this is a staged hoax. This was a staged attack against white Christian Trump supporters on the right that are, you know, cisgendered, you know, that, you know, all this crap that they use. And that was an attack on us, and we're supposed to just go, okay, that's it. That's fine. If it were reversed, it would not leave the news for a year.
Oh, it wouldn't leave the news for a year. And the really dangerous part is especially in Chicago, that could have started a race riot. And people could have been killed and maimed and hurt and removed from the earth. And the danger there, I think, you know, we should compliment the police department, the superintendent of police, the chiefs of police, and everything for really taking this on. I think they've done a really good job of standing up and saying, look, this is not right. Because if they hadn't, it would just get swept under the rug. But what really concerns me is that you see it at the top with the Hillary Clinton email case. look, you and I are both in the military. I know what kind of security clearance I had. If I had done what she did and what she had her staff do, I would still be in prison. Okay, after being convicted of a felony in a court martial, so would you. So would anybody that's, say, a contractor. You know, if Edward Snowden was to come back, we would nail him for releasing classified information. At least initially, anyway. Of course, then there's the old the leaker from that got out of prison. I keep wanting to say she,
Bradley
but it's
Manning.
Bradley. It's Bradley Manning who released wartime classified data into WikiLeaks. And those kind of things, and that's just wrong. He should have gone to prison, and he probably should still be in prison. But the last president had to commute his sentence.
I mean,
those people being treated like that, and then look, if I got stopped and I was and I had classified information on me and I wasn't supposed to today, I would be in prison, probably without bail. And that didn't happen to Hillary Clinton. It doesn't happen to James Clapper. It hasn't happened to John Brennan, James Comey, with all this Russiagate stuff and the obviously proven now facts that they played with the FISA court system and played with the counterintelligence system in order to spy on a presidential campaign and try to take a president down.
That should scare people all over the place. I mean, I don't understand why people on the left can't go, wow, that's messed up. That is horrifying. And yet they still sit here and they roll over and they take it like when you walk over to pet a dog, they're just like so happy and they don't care. I don't get it. What we found out over the last few years of what actually truly happened should be something that scares everybody and should want us to focus more on having better government accountability instead of just going, oh, it's okay. They're doing it for a good reason. No, they wanted to destroy this, system that we have to elect a president. They convinced everyone that Hillary Clinton was going to be in, and she still lost because the American people saw her as a horrible candidate, and they still tried to cheat and lie their way through it, and we still became victorious through all that. And that's one of the amazing things is you can kind of see how that system still works, even though they rigged everything against us as much as they could. We're still able to come out and be victorious in that. I mean, could you imagine what this country would be at, the state of war we'd be in if we had Hillary Clinton as our president? It'd be out of control.
Yeah, it would be out of control. And the one thing we have left to do is bring those folks that broke the law to go after presidential candidate Trump, then his transition, and then now his administration, and those folks that have been hurt by that brought to justice. We've got to bring those folks to justice through the criminal investigative and prosecution process, not through some shortcut or those kind of things. I want to see it fully investigated. The American people have a right to know, because I would like to think of myself that if this had happened to a Barack Obama or a Joe Biden, that I would be saying the exact same thing. I am very concerned about the grave damage that the intelligence community and the executive branch and now the legislative branch with their bogus investigations have done to the United States of America.
Yeah, we weaponize our government to take down an American citizen. That's not good.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Well, Joe, thank you very much for being on with us today. We appreciate it. And folks, now you've met him. Joe Biggs, at Rambo Biggs on Twitter. Go follow him. And you can follow Rob Maness, at Rob Maness on Twitter. We follow each other. And remember, Newcombe Swalwell was named by Joe Biggs. Thanks a lot,
for
Joe.
having me on. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank Joe Biggs again and thank him for his service. He is a combat veteran, and thank him for protecting and supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for us. And don't forget, the founders intended for us to protect our liberty and for the government to protect our liberty, not take it away. Unfortunately, the government thinks liberty is their enemy, and they want more and more and more of it away from us. So stand up for the Constitution, be counted. This is the United States of America. Thanks for being with us again here on the Rob Maness Show.